Welcome back to the State of the Landscape Design Build Industry, where we're going around the country and talking to our top landscape design build professionals to find out how they're managing through this COVID epidemic and to get a better sense of how they're managing their businesses and some things that they've learned throughout this process. So today we have the great fortune of having Jay Sifford on from Sifford Gardens in North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. And he's going to share with us some of his tips, some of his thoughts today, how he got into the business, what he loves about it, and hopefully you guys can find some value in that. So first of all, one thing I love about Jay is that he considers the architecture of the home when he's doing his outdoor designs, right? So he's always focused on how to tie landscape and architecture together so things are beautifully and seamlessly transferred between the two spaces. He also has a really interesting mix of this Asian contemporary kind of in this woodland theme. I've seen a lot of his work that way, and I'm very, very excited by what he does. So that's really cool. I've also seen some really cool home shows that he's done. He uses this very interesting materials in his home shows, which I think add a lot of attractive nature or attractive aesthetic to that. So without further ado, Jay, thanks for being on. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. So again, you've done a lot of really cool stuff. How did you originally get into this this entire career? What got you into gardening and design?
I've always been a gardener. My grandmother taught me to grow strawberries when I was like 5 years old, and sort of got away from it when I went to college. Then I got back into it when I bought my house. I knew nothing about plants. I started watching HGTV back when there was a G in it, which was like 20 years ago. And learned that I need to plant lantana and loropetalum. No matter what the environment is, no matter what the conditions are, those are what I need to plant. So I did, and everything died. And so I sort of slowly networked and got a good group of friends who were good gardeners, and I kind of have an artistic flair naturally. So I was in another business. I did saltwater aquarium design, installation, and maintenance for about 20 years. And then in 2008, 2009, when the economy tanked, I lost about $40,000 worth of business the first quarter of the year. And I thought, instead of sitting around complaining like everybody else, I'm going to try to be as proactive as possible and start a new business, just really to kind of see if I could make up for lost income. And so I had a lot of wealthy clients with really bad yards. So I started with them, and it just kind of spread, and here I am. And I'm still kind of wondering how I got here, but I'm here.
That has to be one of the most interesting stories, from saltwater aquariums to outdoor living. That's quite a transfer. I like that.
Well, see, I used to garden underneath, with corals and rock, and now I garden above the surface. Same principle. Yeah.
That's fun. I like that. I like that a lot. So how many years have you been in the outdoor living business?
About 12. Yeah.
12 years. Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your specialty? What's your thing, Jay?
I think that my thing is defined in 4 parameters. It's what my life is all about, and that is creating immersive spaces that contain all 4 of these things. So art, magic, and story, and then plants. Plants are sort of a means to accomplish the other 3 things. I think a garden without art is just a collection of plants. A garden without magic is just a collection of plants. And I do believe that every land, every person, every house has a story to tell. And I think storytelling is almost a lost art in our society. If you think back on, when you were a kid, you were sitting on your grandfather's lap, and he maybe would tell you stories about the Great Depression or how he met your grandmother or something like that. And it was such a joyful time. Well, we don't tell stories anymore. We Google information, and there's a world of difference between the two. So if I can use my gardens as a vehicle to tell and convey stories, I feel like I've really done something that adds to the richness of people's lives.
I love that. I love that. That's what I've noticed about your design style, that almost a whimsical nature to it, right? I think that's the magic side, right? You almost feel like when you see some of the stuff that you almost feel like you're back to being a child and enjoying the simple things, right? The cool colors and the strange shapes, and like that's the art side of it, I believe. But that's really cool.
One of the biggest, I guess the biggest dawning of whatever, the biggest revelation I ever had was I was watching Mary Poppins, the original one, about 10 years ago with a bottle of wine on a Saturday night, like you do, and when Jane and Michael Banks and Mary and Bert jumped into the sidewalk chalk painting, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And the whole world underneath the sidewalk then was this big animated world. And there were all kinds of bright primary colors, loud trumpets, and animated figures, and all of this cool stuff. And it just hit me that that's what a garden should be, because it's just being immersed in a different dimension, where things are not real. They're stylized, they're stylized versions of reality, because what we create is not how nature actually is. It's our perception of it in a very stylized way, I think, usually. And so that's when I decided I could make immersive, magical gardens. And so that's been my mission ever since. I think that my purpose in life, I think we all have a purpose, whether you believe in God or fate or the universe or whatever. And I know that my purpose is to create as much beauty per square inch as I can between now and whenever it is that I die, whether it's next week or in 50 years. And so that's how I order my life, because I just want to create beauty that impacts people and affects how they think, how they live, and who they become.
I love that, Jeanette. That's really beautiful.
Thanks.
It's really, really cool. I see that Lisa Port's watching. Hi, Lisa. And Kristen Dempsey's watching. Morris, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, let us know. We can I can bounce them off Jay here as we go. So tell us a little bit about your business model. How do you work over there at Sifford Gardens?
We're a small company, and I keep it that way. So I had, before this whole thing started, I had 4 employees, which is about as many as I wanted. And 2 of them quit to go to work for another company. But, looking back on it, it was a blessing, because it cut my payroll by 1/3. And that was really good for this time. Now I've got to kind of build it back up. But I keep it small because I want to have that interaction with people. I want to go hand pick a Japanese maple that's leaning just slightly to the left so it can hang over a boulder into a stream, or, I hand pick my boulders. Stuff like that's very important, because that's what makes a good garden great, I think, is that attention to detail. And if I had 3 crews and, 25 or 30 employees, I wouldn't have time for that. I'd be sitting at my desk drinking coffee or something else and scheduling and writing emails all day long. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It makes you old before your time. You got to have fun.
Takes the magic away, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, I do all the appointments. I do all the designing. I've tried to have other people help me with design, but they don't design like I do. And people hire me because they want what I can give them. And so that didn't work out. So basically I have a real problem with delegating tasks and authority. So I kind of supervise. I pretty much do it all, but I have my remaining 2 employees are the best employees I've ever had. Rob's been with me since the very beginning. And if I had to lose 2, they were okay, but I'm glad that I still have the 2 that I have.
That's good. That loyalty is important, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I take good care of them too. I believe it, comes back to you in the long run.
You sure do. Absolutely. Yep. They feel it, especially during these times, right?
Mm-hmm.
They feel that you're out, you got their back, and that you're here to make sure they survive and thrive as well. And that goes a long way.
So we've had to, fill in some gaps. But fortunately, I have enough clients who need mulching and pruning and weed pulling to where if we have a couple days in between jobs, we can just go do that. So very rarely are they without a day's worth of work. That's
really cool. So Lisa Port says, make sure to show us the shoes you're wearing right now.
Actually, I'm embarrassed because I'm barefooted. I came home from work.
Sorry, Lisa.
I kind of thought Lisa would do that, but I could show you my closet. No, I can't because it's really messy. But I kind of thought she might ask that. Yeah. But after a hard day of work, barefoot is the best.
Yeah, that's for sure. Even driving home off the job, right? You take the shoes and the boots off and you're barefoot driving home. There's just something so freeing about that, isn't there?
It's so good. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like a woman in the 60s burning her bra,
Yeah.
I only felt that way one other time, and that's when I sold my lawnmower to my neighbor. I felt so liberated because I no longer own turf. And same kind of feeling, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jason's watching and Jeff is also watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in here. If you have any questions for Jay, just let us know. And Lisa's not very happy. She says, dang it.
I could go put on some shoes for Lisa if she really wants to see them. I have striped shoes. I have blue suede shoes, dark and light. I know you're a shoe guy too. I see that you like Taft shoes.
Yeah, they actually are quite nice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But getting back to the point that I think she's referring to about props, we had that
Yeah.
discussion the other day
Yeah.
about shoes and about glasses. And I
Yeah,
guess that's
exactly.
part of my sales shtick if I have it. I try to tailor some of my apparel to the kind of clients that I'm going to go see. You know, there's a couple areas of our town that are very artsy. So I might wear my striped shoes and my bright red glasses, that kind of thing. And but then if I'm going to like Myers Park, which is very traditional, we don't work there a lot because we don't line boxwoods and azaleas up in front of houses. But then I would probably wear my black glasses and some, you know.
A little more traditional garb, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So who is your ideal client, Jay? If you pick one person and say, I want to just multiply them, who are they?
Typically, they move here from other places because, like I said, traditional charlatans, that's different from charlatan. But charlatans like their boxwoods, they like their Autolucan laurels, they like their azaleas and their forsythia. I find that stuff boring as hell. And so we really don't do that. Typically, people that move here from the West Coast, specifically the Pacific Northwest, or even the Northeast, really like what we do. And I think I get enough business from that, and because they look around at the other designers in the area and they're way more traditional than what a lot of these people are. So typically they would, as I said, be moving in from another area. Also people that are really open to artistic interpretation, people who understand magic. I've had a woman, or actually her husband, called on Saturday. They were a referral and they just bought an acre lot in Davidson in the northern part of the county. And I was just telling them about how I feel like magic and art and storytelling and plants are, you know, the 4 parameters or building blocks for a great garden. She goes, oh my God, I love this. We're going to get along great. I already love you and haven't met you yet. So I'm going to go see her tomorrow morning at 10 and I'm very excited. Nice. Yeah. She said, but no voodoo. That's not the kind of magic I'm looking for. You don't have to worry. I don't even like gnomes. I'm sure as hell not going to like voodoo.
Did you figure out what shoes you're going to wear yet?
Probably not the striped ones. I might go with the baby blue suede, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe the purple ones. I'm not sure how her husband is. Better not do the purple ones. Yeah. I'll come up with something.
A little over the top.
Yeah.
I love that you don't care. I love that you just are who you are and just roll with that. I love that.
Well, I'm 61 years old, which is practically, you know, in dog years, 350 or 400 years old. And I finally realized that, you know, I'm not going to change. I'm me at this stage of my life. And if you're going to try to change me, you're not going to have very much luck. So just be yourself, you know, and if people like you, they like you. If they don't, one thing I decided when I first started in my first business 25 or so years ago is from day one, if somebody didn't want me in a certain place, then I did not want to be there. So if I was ever fired from a job, it never bothered me, you know, because if they didn't want me there, I didn't want to be there. And I've just always lived by that. So I don't worry about things like that. Fortunately, now there are enough people that want me that I don't have to be concerned at all about the rest.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I think the more you do that, the more you stand your ground and say, this is who I am, take it or leave it, the more the universe attracts to you and more people that resonate with that.
And it's fun because, when I would lose an account before, I'd always get like 2 new ones the next week. Yeah. I really believe if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're in a good place. And if you treat people with respect and do very good work, there'll always be room made for you.
Absolutely.
So I don't worry about these recessions, and, you know, the disease is quite an unfortunate thing, but I know we'll be fine, you know. And one thing that I think one of your questions that you'd ask when you sent me a list of questions, you know, how are you dealing with this? And I'll just tell you, you know, I have to take care of myself first. I believe that I have a gift. I believe that you have a gift. You know, we all, I think, have some gift, you know, and I know that mine is to create magic and story and art. And I have to protect that and I have to cultivate that. So when this thing happened, I just decided, you know, I'm going to just go to the mountain house and I'm going to nurture myself, you know. So how do I do that? I read books by awesome landscape architects and designers and famous gardeners. And I look at sunsets and anything that kind of creates that sense of awe and beauty. and inspiration and magic in me, then I gravitate towards those things. Because if I don't nurture myself, nobody else will.
True.
That's my number one job before taking care of employees, before paying my bills or whatever, is believing in myself. Because I know that if I believe in myself, I'll always have a way made for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy sometimes, but I forced myself. Yeah.
Well, the same thing I tell you when you get on the airplane, right? If you lose cabin pressure and the mask drop down, don't put it on your neighbor first, put it on yourself, because then you can help. It's the same thing here. If you don't take care of yourself internally in your mindset, the next thing you know, you have nothing else to give. So it's not a selfish thing, it's selfless, but you've got to start from inside. That's where it's lost.
It's easy to be misunderstood when you're like that, because I've been told I'm a narcissist. Do not think I'm a narcissist, but it can come across that way sometimes.
It can. But I think we do it for the right reasons. And I know we do it for the right reasons, that's for sure. So so with the whole pandemic in place, have you been able to sell projects? And if so, how have you been doing it?
I actually have sold some projects, and it sort of surprises me in that I'm a little bit more nonchalant about it than I even normally am. And I've never been a high pressure person. When I was 30 years old, I sold life insurance. That was like the worst possible career match for me that anybody could ever imagine. And so because of that, I've always really run like hell away from, high pressure sales. I give them my vision. I have this gift that when I walk on a piece of property, usually within 2 to 3 minutes, at the most 5 minutes, I've already got the whole thing mapped out in my head as far as what I see. I convey that to people, and they like it. If not, I ask them more questions and find out, exactly what they like and what they're looking for. But if we're not a good match, after my dad died once, well, he only died once because we all only die once. But I went to a psychologist, and it took me I think I went to 4 or 5 different psychologists before I found one that connected with me and that I connected with her. So I think it's the same way with us. If we try to appeal to everybody universally, it's almost like prostitution in a way. Listen. I believe in listening and asking questions, because at the end of the day, I tell them 2 things. Number one, it's your space and it's your money, and you've got to be comfortable with it. Second thing I tell them is that if I meet your expectations, I have totally failed in my job. That I need to vastly surpass your expectations for what you think your land and your life can be like. And they look at me funny, but when I say that, usually they hire me. Yeah.
Well, it's true though. That's just your target, right? That's your goal. So I'm sure you achieve that. So it's not a lie. You're definitely shooting straight. That's what your goal is. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm not a hard pressure person. Maybe I should be, but I'm not.
Yeah. So how has your backlog been for the season? Did you come into the spring with a pretty decent backlog of work? And if so, has it been hard to get material, the right plants and materials you need for your projects as you're building this spring?
Well, normally we have about a 6 to 10 month backlog, I would say, of projects. And I went into the spring with probably 6 or 8 month backlog. What happened though is that our county kind of shut down, and the county regulations said that we really weren't essential. Even grass cutting companies weren't essential. But then the governor came out with some standards like 2 days later and said that, much of landscaping was considered essential. However, we were supposed to go by the stricter of the two. So I could still do work if I could prove that it was solving really bad issues like erosion, water mitigation, stuff like that. So I had to put my regular schedule on hold, trying my best to sort of conform to the law and kind of flip-flop, because typically we do hardscape during the summer. We do a lot of dry creek beds and that kind of thing. So what I did, I had to move those summer projects up to the spring to kind of function within the confines of the law, which means that this summer we could have a little bit of an issue because we don't plant trees in July down here, and so I don't really know how that's all going to work out, but I do know that it will work out because it always works out.
Always.
Yeah.
Yep.
So whereas normally I might have 6 to 10 month waiting list, you know, there were a couple times this year I could start like the next week, which is almost embarrassing. It's almost like I'm just starting and I don't know what I'm doing. And oh yeah, I'm sitting at home waiting for you to call when the case. And I just explained to people, we just had to flip flop everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, have your clients been very understanding during this time when things have changed, either timeline or any of that type of thing?
They have. I'll be honest, the first 3 weeks or so of this, I was just, as I said, nurturing myself, and I couldn't draw. You know, it's like I had a mental block, which probably other people have experienced as well. Because I'm not going to draw something that is just kind of reworking or rehashing 5 projects we did last year. Because if people are entrusted me with their money and their confidence and their personal space, they deserve the very best that I can give them. Absolutely. And so I just quit drawing for like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And the people that were kind of waiting on their plans, I just explained to them, I said, you know, I could draw something that would be pretty good, but it's not up to my standards. And I would rather wait until I can do my very best work, because that's what you hired me to do. And they were very understanding.
That's good. That's good. I think, yeah, most are. I know my clients have been as well. You know, they all understand that things are going on, but you know, we have some projects where they've got a gigantic hole in the backyard that's full of water, and it's not the kind of water you want to swim in. And but they want to be swimming in like 4 weeks from now, and that's not happening because those services are just being let back on now. So, you know, most have been pretty good though, I have to say. I really can't complain too much, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a business owner, what is some of the greatest challenges you face right now during this time?
Probably hiring new employees, because I need 2, but I'll settle for 1 good one, actually. Yeah. So, but I've got to find a good one, you know. So that would be one challenge. Supply chains have been a little rough. Actually, my main plant wholesaler said they had their best April they've ever had. And I can't find plants. I can't find Laura Pedalum. I can't find dianthus. I mean, who can't find dianthus, right? And, so I'm sort of scrounging for that, and I'm having to substitute, which I don't like to do. So that's been a real issue. And then pottery, fountains, things like that. You know, these showrooms have been closed. Yeah. And I'm not going to just order something from a picture if it's like a $600, you know, big pot, or, you know, several $1,000 fountain. I need to touch it and feel it and make sure that it feels good in my hand, and you know, tap on it, see how it sounds and that sort of thing. And I've not been able to do that. So those projects, I'm telling people, we're going to go ahead and do your project, but we're going to have to come back later and do the fountain or do the pottery, because, you know, it's important for me to make sure you're getting something that's really good quality. And right now I can't do that.
Absolutely. No, I'm sure they appreciate that too, because they wouldn't want something that you don't personally love. They hired you because of your eye and your ability. They want to make sure it's 100%. So I'm sure they're okay with that.
I think if you frame things in a way that the customer knows that you're thinking about them and you're putting their best interests first, I think most people are going to be pretty understanding. You know, every now and then you get the people, well, you know, I'm having a wedding here in 2 weeks, so you got to have garden done by then. But you know what? Weddings are canceled right now. So
yeah, true.
It's not even a good excuse.
Yeah, no, they can't even make that up now.
Yeah, and if people pressure me with that, usually I don't go for those kind of deadlines. But if people pressure me, historically, I just said, you know, I just can't work under this kind of pressure. You probably need to find somebody else.
Yeah. That's your best bet. Just lay it out and say, this is what it is. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Real simple.
Yeah.
Well, I see that Dwayne's watching and Susan's watching. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in here. If you have any questions for Jay, just fire them off here in the comments section and we'll ask them. So how did you learn how to sell?
Gosh. I don't really know that I'm a good salesman. There's a lot of room for improvement there. I did have a sales background. I used to sell food for a food distributor years and years ago. And that's, like I said, I had the botched career in life insurance sales. But what I found out is that if you really believe in something, you can sell it. You know, I could go to the White House and sell a garden to the White House probably, because I know that what I'm talking about much more than they know what I'm talking about, or what they think they know what I'm talking about. And when you have that confidence, I think it's easy to sell, because you have that enthusiasm and that authority that goes along with it. And I think that's what people are looking for. They're looking to be guided, because a lot of people, they don't really know, you know, the difference between an Elysium and a Carex. you know?
Yeah.
Hey, they're the same color, you know, they're chartreuse. Most people don't know the women know what chartreuse is, the men, not so much. But, but, you know, when you can guide them and they know that you're looking out for their best interest and you're showing them, like, as you said before, how to get what they really want.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants an escape. Everybody wants to reconnect with their inner child. Everybody wants to experience magic and story and have a beautiful garden to immerse themselves in. And if you can get that excited about talking about those things and showing them how they can have that, 9 times out of 10, they're going to hire you. And if they don't, they're losers. They want a gnome garden, you know,
They miss an opportunity.
underneath the petunias. Huh?
Yeah. No, I always like to say that, you know, what we design and what we sell and help people buy, that it's not something that is just a structural entity like a patio or a path or, you know, a deck or a pool. It's not a structural piece. People are buying this for an emotional need, right? They're buying this because they want to solve an emotional problem, but it's a structural entity that does that. So what's important is to make sure we understand, I think you've alluded to this, to get a sense of that. What is the magic within them that they want to see in their backyard, right? What does it mean to them? Because it unleashes something within them in order to, that they can only get outside. It takes them back to being a child. It takes them back to a time of much more simplicity, of possibility, all of those things. And, you know, I think your gardens, they really attract that because there's something, again, whimsical, magical about them that you don't just see everywhere. And once we realize it's an emotional buy, it's not a structural fix this solution, you know, problem solution type thing, it becomes totally different.
I usually ask people, you know, how do you want to feel in your garden? And they kind of look at me like, huh? But I say, do you want to feel relaxed or invigorated or inspired or motivated or childlike, you know, carefree? How do you want to feel? And I tell them I can use shapes and sizes and colors and textures to build around them a stage to where they can feel exactly how they want to feel in their space.
Yeah.
And usually, you know, in my area anyway, garden designers go out and talk to them about, oh yeah, you know, you need something tall here and something, you know, flat here with a bunch of fescue in the front. And that's totally not what we do. You know, we, as you said, we're basically setting a stage for people to act out the life that they want to have. And that's a big privilege. I spoke to a group in, where was I? Somewhere in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, in January. It was a group of landscape professionals. And I said, you know, don't ever let anybody tell you that your job is not important. I said, you are providing stress relief for people. You are able to lower blood pressure. You are able to cure some diseases. You are able to cure depression. You know, you're able to take people from grief to bliss. Who else can do that? So we have all these tools at our disposal to be able to influence people in all those positive ways. And yeah, it's not just putting the gnome under a petunia, you know, it's really influencing people and building a better world.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. We find that, I mean, there's nothing better, I find at least personally as a design build professional, that there's nothing more fulfilling than seeing pictures of clients' backyards after they're done, that they're posting on social media with their kids in there, their pets in there, their families in there. And you realize that your project is the backdrop to their life, right? All the pictures they take, the birthday parties in the patio, the kids in the pool, you name it. All those pictures of friends and family around the fire pit. You look at those pictures, we see our project being the reason why they can collect and share these moments. It's the backdrop to their lives. And you nailed it with that. Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's so much more than just the structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has this outbreak changed about your business? About how you do business or how business is, you know?
Actually, we're doing what we did before. We're charging the same amount. You know, I think there was a discussion on your Facebook page, you know, should we lower our design rates, you know, a couple of years ago, and everybody said no, and I said no. If we create value, then we should charge for that value. I do believe that everybody has the right to a beautiful garden space. It's just that we may not be able to help them do that, you know. That old adage from Home Depot, you can do it, we can help. I found out a long time ago they can't do it and Home Depot can't help.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but if I go on an appointment and I'm not the right fit, at least maybe I can give them some some nuggets to where they can try to go do something. And at least it may not be great, but at least it's better than what they could have done before. But I digress. So getting back to your questions, or your question, it hasn't really changed too much. Fortunately, we have enough people moving to the city to where I always have a constant supply of work. Sometimes I might take on smaller projects just to kind of fill, 3 or 4 days in between some larger ones. Maybe I didn't have to do that before. So it takes a little bit more legwork, and there's a little bit more stress involved with that because my employees are in the baby making stages of life. So, you need formula and diapers. And I think the hardest thing about my job actually is making sure my employees have 5 days worth of work every week of the year. It's not easy to do that. And especially
you work year round down in Charlotte?
We do. We quit planting normally around June 1st, start back about September the 10th. We plant all winter long. Now,
Wow.
my mountain property, it's flipped. So we don't plant in the winter, but we plant all through the summer up
Got
there.
it.
But I'm not taking on any business. I have people stop in the middle of the street. What is this? And one guy said, I think this is a daycare center looking at my house. I'm like, I don't know what that means. But I've got all these conifers, I tell people I love trees that raise arthritis to an art form. So the more contorted and prostrate and funky and, the tree is, the more I love it. And can I tell you just a little story for a minute?
Please.
So I think I wrote about this recently on Facebook, but I had this art group of 8 to 10-year-olds come through here like 2 years ago in the summer. And the art teacher told me that in order to prepare themselves for their visit to my garden, they'd been studying historical botanical art prints of, tree leaves and things all day long. And I'm looking at her, and in the South, we say, bless your heart. That can mean many different things depending on your inflection. But and I looked at the kids, and they looked kind of bored and disinterested. And I said, here's the thing. Don't ever let any adult tell you that you can't draw a tree that looks like a purple lollipop or a red tree that's slithering across the ground that looks like a snake. Because in my garden, I guarantee you can find trees that look exactly like that. So I have living proof that your imagination is something that you need to hold on to. Hold on to that childlike quality that you have, because one day you're going to want to just Google everything and you're going to lose touch with that person on the inside, that person you're living and enjoying right now. So don't do that. And that teacher just got madder and madder and madder and madder. But I felt like that I turned a page in the lives of a lot of those kids by doing that. And it was a real privilege for me to do that.
That sounds really cool. I'm sure you did, because so often they're forced to grow up so fast, right? And you're saying, look, you don't have to. It's a choice.
Yeah. I have a place in my garden that I dug out so you sit down lower, and I surround it with really big foliage, like, substance hostas and acanthus and my Chinese podophyllums that I'm in love with, and, big leaves. And this was years ago, and I didn't even think about the fact that it might affect me emotionally one way or the other. But when I sit down there and I'm surrounded by all these big leaves sunken down, my perceived scale of myself is smaller, and it brings back all these childhood memories. And so again, it gets back to what I said before. We have this tremendous capacity to change lives. And who doesn't want to reconnect with the inner child, really?
Absolutely. That's what we're all trying to do our whole lives, right?
That's why men have toys.
That's right.
My employee John has more toys than any 32-year-old I've ever seen. Yeah, he's trying to
keep collecting, right? So what's one piece of advice that you could give other, design build professionals out there that you think would help them with their business?
I would say find out what makes you special and what makes you unique, and nurture it and cultivate it. I think too many people have the shotgun approach. I can cut grass and I can plant trees and I can do this and that. But so can everybody else. Find that one thing that you're good at, that thing that makes you special. In my case, is creating immersive, magical environments for people. And I know that. And so I cultivate it. I read about it. I think about it. I had a great idea pop into my head the other day. It's like, I've never seen that before, but that's going to be awesome. I've got to find a place to do it now. But cultivate that specialty. Now you can be too specialized. I used to have an employee, all he wanted to do is creatively prune Japanese maples. And I'm like, well, that's fine for the 1% of the time we do that. But 95% of the time we need to dig holes. Can you just dig a hole?
Yeah.
So you can get too specialized, but so many people are scattershot. All around my city, there are these landscaping trucks, and it says has a list of 10 things on the door that what they do. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, you're probably not good at any of those things.
Exactly.
And that brings me to one more point. I'm talking your ear off. But when I first got into this business, I struggled for years not knowing what to call myself. Landscaper, landscape designer, garden designer. Landscaper in my city means you prune trees and shrubs badly and you cut grass. Landscape designer, people ask me how big my fleet of lawnmowers was, and I don't own any lawnmowers. Garden designer, they ask me, so you plant peas and corn, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it took me like 6 years, and I finally settled on garden designer because I want to create gardens, not just landscapes.
Yeah.
So again, find what you're good at and just cultivate that and hone your skill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally agree. And that's the truth really in life too, right?
It is.
Figure out who you are, the why. There's a saying, I forget who said it, but they said, there's two most important days in your life is the day you're born and the day you figured out why.
Exactly.
Right. And that's a whole different level, but I mean, it's the same concept where what you're here for, what you're here to do and how you're here to impact. So that's really cool. So what positive do you see coming out of COVID? These last few weeks or almost months now of people being out, sitting at home and contemplating life. What do you think is some of the positives we're going to see out of this?
Well, one thing I predicted a couple months ago, and it's actually starting to happen, is I'm thinking all these people in Charlotte, every other person is a banker. And so all these bankers are working from home and they're looking out their windows and like, damn, that looks like crap,
Yeah.
And so I'm getting calls, I'm sure nobody's ever said this to you before, but I'm sitting home looking out my window and it looks like crap. It's like, oh no, I haven't heard that one before, but it's like the 18th one of the day. But I think people are getting back to a simpler life. I noticed the same thing that happened in the crash of 2008 and 9, where in Charlotte, they tear down one mansion and build like 18 little houses on that piece of property. And it was kind of getting to that stage again. So I think this is just a forced halt in the stream of our lives. And we have to stop and realize what's important. So simple things. I always try to look on the bright side. What's bright about this? I don't know. I can only think of two things. Number one, the air's cleaner. And number two, the traffic is lighter.
Yeah.
Probably somewhat related. Do you think?
Yeah.
So people are sitting at home and they're realizing, I can go for a walk in the middle of the day because I'm not working at a high-rise downtown.
Yeah.
And they go down the greenway and they're looking at these plants and they're watching the Canadian geese fly overhead and, that kind of thing. And I think that it's going to really help people reconnect with nature and also reconnect with their families. I think in about 7 months, there are going to be a whole bunch of babies born and a whole bunch of divorces.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, people are getting back to nature, and it's good it's happening now when it's the prettiest time of the year rather than, in February.
Yeah.
It's good.
I agree. Dwayne writes in here, he said, I had the same problem back to our last question about what do you call yourself? What do you feel most fit with? He calls himself an outdoor living designer.
There you go.
Right. So that's similar to what I do as well, because we kind of encompass the whole, from the architectural side through the hardscapes to the pools to the landscape as well. So it's amazing how many different terminologies have been created for what we do, right? Because you focus more toward the plant side of things and the more magical, whimsical side of things, where where Dwayne and I are more toward the structural elements of these things, and the landscaping is a small part of it. So I love that there's so much diversity within our industry, because each one of us provides something very unique, and the clients have choices then, which is awesome because they can pick what makes the most sense to them.
And I admire people who can do everything that I can't do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Same here.
Yeah.
So Jay, do you have any other parting wisdom for us before we wrap up here?
Let's see. Other than drinking a glass of wine at lunch every day.
Is that the secret to longevity and happiness?
Exactly. I'm going to live to be 500.
Love it.
No, I just, be yourself, believe in yourself, work hard, and be honest and protect your reputation above all. You know, that's getting back to the point I made about if I just meet your expectations, I've totally failed. You know, I need to vastly exceed your expectations. And because if you don't have a good reputation, you might as well just quit and go to work at the Home Depot garden department because you're done. You know, guard your reputation with zeal and work hard and treat people right. And in the long run, everything will work out.
Yeah, always does. Well, thank you, Jay, for all of everything you've shared with us today. And I hope everybody watching out there had a chance to get some information and get to know Jay a bit. And I love this story. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you have any other questions for Jay, what's the best way to reach out to you, Jay? If somebody wants to reach out and see your work and
well, actually, they could look on my website, and if they get really bored, they can go to House, because my website, I keep only 12 projects on there and change them out. House has like almost everything we've ever done, but it's siffordgardendesign.com is the website.
Okay.
And then you can just look me up on House also.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jay. This has been a pleasure. And when you're up in the Philadelphia area, we'll have to get together and have dinner and chat. It'd be really nice.
Definitely.
But, yeah, no, it sounds good, everybody. And thanks for tuning in. And we'll be back with some more industry professionals and seeing how they're managing through this COVID situation. And thanks for joining us.